the next speaker, Ron. So Ron Boschma, who is also one of the persons who, since pioneering the evolutionary economic geography framework, is at the forefront of our understanding of how innovation emerges, how it's transferred, and how it's specially transferred across the space. Ron, I think, needs no introduction, but just in case, he's the director of the Center of Innovation Research and Competence in the Learning Economy, Circle, the famous Circle Center at Lund University, and he's also has a long career and continues to work at the University of Utrecht. So without further ado, Ron, please go.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andres. Of course, thanks a lot for the invitation, Roberta and Roberto. Really a pleasure to be here. I also always consider Italy as my second home country. It's always a real pleasure to be here. I do not dare to do it in Italian, although I can understand the Italian language, but I don't want to make a fool of myself here. Yes, I have about 50 minutes, which is quite a challenge. I would like to say something on smart specialization and policy. Just to share some ideas with you on that. First, say something on the entrepreneurial discovery process, but I don't have to spend too much words on that because that has already quite well covered by Dominique. I would like to add some, let's say, geographical wisdom to that concept, and then I will talk a bit about related variety as also put forward by Dominique, and see how that can be incorporated into a smart specialization process. And then I will especially address the key question that has also been put on the table here, is that how to identify regional potentials, and that is of course a main challenge for us, for scientists, but also for policymakers. But I just want to, I don't say that I have found a solution, but just to share some ideas on that. Okay, well, I can go quite quickly through that. Smart specialization concept is to me a policy concept. I think also Dominique would completely agree on that. If not, you can. That is still in search of theory, although now I think we are working on that. Entrepreneurial discovery process is largely about the policy process, and here I quote, to select and prioritize fields or areas where a cluster of activity should be developed and let entrepreneurs discover the right domains of future specialization. Right? And in entrepreneur, it's not understood as it is maybe common in the economic literature, really about entrepreneurs that start up new firms, that entrepreneurs are really defined in a very broad manner. Anybody that is a stakeholder, private and public actors that must come together and to see to what extent, in fact, they can identify and prioritize domains or areas that could make a difference in the near future. And of course, there's a lot of emphasis on public policy, but I'll skip that part. Of course, there is, and to link that more to, let's say, what I call here geographical wisdom. I think it was even put forward by Phil McCann and Raquel Ortega-Anguilas when they criticized the smart specialization concept, but that it was a bit blind on a number of spatial issues. And one, of course, is very important, is that we should not forget about the fact that the intensity and nature of the internal search process depends on a lot of geographical issues, where you're located, whether you're in an urbanized area, when you're in a less favored region, whether there is related variety in a region, because as we know, the self-discovery process is about searching and exploring, and that is always localized in a cognitive sense, but also in a geographical sense. You should account for connectivity within and between regions, positions in networks that regions have, governance structures of regions also, has also been put forward by Fabrizio. What is the governance potential of regions? Do they really have the power and the autonomy to make something happen? Or, as the example of Greece showed, right, that everything is happening at a national scale, well, you can already forget about it from the very beginning. So there are a number of geographical issues here. So, and I think that was also in the so-called Barca report published in 2009 that we really should develop it as a kind of place-based approach. And this has also been developed further by a fine colleague of mine here in the audience, Björn Eschheim, that was working on the concept of constructing regional advantages, and it was really, I think, about that. So what is smart specialization about? Smart specialization is not about more specialization, but it's about breaking out of old specializations. That's one thing. The second thing is smart specialization is about developing new specialization, preferably in new and unique activities, right? Of course, you can also develop new specializations that are all around the world, and you will never be very competitive in that respect because there are already many competitors around in the world. So it's not only about developing new specializations, but it also matters whether you really have a niche in that respect and you really can make an input also impact also internationally. And to me, smart specialization is especially about diversifying in new directions and above all making new recombinations between different capabilities that are around at the regional scale. So in that sense, the history of regions defines available options that are available for policymakers, but also defines probable outcomes, whether you're more likely to be successful or not. And key is that the exploitation of related variety in a region, because that defines the potential of recombinations within and across regions. And I will go a bit more into that in detail. So we have done quite a lot of research together with many colleagues showing that the higher the number of technology-related activities in a region, the more learning opportunities are locally available and the more knowledge spillovers might take place, right? Because all those activities really add something in terms of knowledge, and so activities can really learn from each other, they can recombine existing pieces of knowledge and diversify into new directions. This is really what recombination of growth is all about. So the higher related variety, the more opportunities to make new recommendations and the more opportunities to diversify into new and growing industries and to develop new growth paths in regions. And this and we have done some work on that in terms of regional branching, which is about that new industries branch out of technology related activities from which existing capabilities are exploited and recombined in new activities. And there have been a lot of studies already on that, and there's quite systematic evidence on that, working with large data sets covering a very long periods in different countries at the regional scale at a very detailed industrial level, and it tends to show the significance of this process of regional branching. But specialization depends not only on related variety, but also on the degree of connectivity within and between regions. Because we know from empirical literature that positions of countries and regions in trade networks, value chains and knowledge networks are crucial. And of course, if you look at those networks, they're always highly skewed. Right? Some regions are highly connected, while many regions are poorly connected or not connected at all. But it also applies to actors within the region. Right? So some actors are really hubs in knowledge networks, for example, while others are denied access or are poorly connected to those. And that, of course, has important implications for their well-being. So there is a need to link related variety in that respect to the notion of relatedness, in the sense that the economic effect of related variety in a region might still be low when the local related industries are poorly connected. So you might still have a wide range of related industries, but if they don't interact or connect for whatever reason, they don't, then you go in fact in what Fabrizio Barca talked about, that you leave potential untapped, right? And this is really what I think should be key in the design of this type of policy. And then I think also institutions should become more part of this smart specialization process, because we all know that they have an effect on the intensity and nature of linkages, in this case between related activities at the regional scale. And in fact, I'm now working on a number of papers, in fact, that we try to see to what extent institutions really not only intensify a diversification process at the regional scale, but also whether they have an impact on the nature of diversification that takes place at the regional scale. And for example, we take the varieties of capitalism literature, and we look at flexibility of labor market, flexibility of capital markets, and then we actually could indeed show that the more flexible they are, the more countries diversify in more unrelated activities, so that it enables them to make a jump in their industrial evolution. Well, if you have less flexible markets, you can still diversify, but the nature of the diversification process is different, because you tend to diversify in much more closely related activities that you already have. So the institutions do not allow you to make major jumps in that respect. And I think that is something which could be promising, and to make that part of a smart specialization concept. So there are two basic questions about the entrepreneurial discovery process in smart specialization. Is it anything goes? How about setting priorities? And how to avoid that local stakeholders take over? And this, I think, also has been addressed already by Fabrizio in that respect, right? It is often a very conflict-ridden process in which vested interests are threatened, and especially when you make local stakeholders part of the design and the implementation of the policy process at the regional scale, yeah, you might not always expect that they behave in the interest of economic renewal, because that is indeed what smart specialization would like to achieve in the end. So there is a need to identify regional potentials, but at the same time to keep local stakeholders as much out of it as possible, at least not making strong sectors stronger. It's not picking winners. It's about avoiding vested interest. And let me just briefly illustrate that with a figure I have here. Each node, here's a network of, well, you might call it domains, or you might call it industries, or whatever activities, and each node stands for one domain. And then, if there's a link between two nodes, it means that they are technologically related. If there's no link between two nodes, it means they're not technologically related. And then I make a distinction between blue nodes and white nodes. Blue nodes are the ones that are present in a region, while the white nodes are not present in a region. Okay? So you have, for example, on your left side, you have a cluster of blue nodes in the region, which are all activities that tend to be technologically related, because there are a lot of linkages between the nodes. And there's, for example, sector 5, which is not present in the region, but still has technological links with a number of other industries in that particular region. Well, now how to identify potentials to diversify? I mean, I think this could be useful as a kind of tool to identify those. One is, for example, well, what about supporting sector 11, which is on the whole right-hand side, right? It exists of a cluster of industries that are technologically related, but none of those is present in the region. Well, forget about that one, right? This is the so-called the fashionable ones that are mentioned worldwide as being the growth sectors for the near future. Forget about that, but this region has no potential at all to develop that, so it's just a waste of public money if you're going to develop that. And of course, this has happened in the past many times, and I think here you could just illustrate very well why that happened. Then there, of course, what can you do? Well, for example, if you look again at sector 5, it's a sector that is still missing in the region, but of course it is technologically related with 4 other sectors in the region, sector 1, 4, 3 and 6. So there is a lot of potential for this industry to be developed, and this could be done in this self-discovery process that Dominique was talking about, right? So if we could really identify here there is an industry that might be fully embedded and can really exploit related resources in that area, then of course it has a quite high probability to develop in that region. And if it does not do automatically, because there might be some bottlenecks, then policy intervention might really make a difference in that respect. Another way of looking at this is also that this type of smart specialization policy is really about making connections between industries or domains that are technologically related to each other. But it does not necessarily mean that in this particular region they do interact or they do connect. So here the connectivity issue comes into being. There might be all kinds of bottlenecks in a region, institution-wise, or just pure ignorance of agents that those connections are not established at the regional scale. But of course, there is a lot of untapped potential again in the region if you could connect those. So again, bringing them together in a self-discovery process, I think would really help and might make that happen. Well, I think you could talk a lot about this figure, but just for the sake of time, to go to my last slide, just to summarize a bit. So in principle, smart specialization policy could be applied, as far as I'm concerned, to every type of region, but well, no one size fits all policy. There's a need for ultimate tailor-made policy strategies, so we know that. But some regions have more capabilities and more variety, and there's more opportunity to diversify into new specializations. And some regions have institutional and governance structures that facilitate industries to connect, interact, and make new recombinations. And those, of course, should be taken into account when implementing and designing a smart specialization policy. So the main challenge to me is for smart specialization policy is exploit variety and avoid vested interest. Not easy said, not very easy to implement, but that is of course why we're here and trying to make some progress, at least in that field. Thank you very much.